In early 2014, I had just graduated with a biochem degree, and I was working as a lab tech in an organic lab. I was given the freedom to work on some small projects, and I decided to just document some of the things that I'd done. I initially had no intention to share any of it publicly. In March of 2014, though, I had changed my mind for some reason, and I decided to post something to YouTube. I originally wanted to just post random video clips, but at the last minute, I chose to narrate it and make it kind of like a video lab report. I did it like this so that I could repeat the project if I ever wanted to. I remember hovering my cursor over the publish button on YouTube, feeling really nervous. I honestly thought I was going to be torn apart for everything from my voice to my lab skills. I went ahead and published it anyway though, and I waited for the hate comments to pour in. But to my surprise, people actually genuinely seemed to like it. I mean, there were some comments about some poor lab practice, and the fact that my intro is just a still frame or a still image. But besides that, people were genuinely very positive and nice about it. Unfortunately, if you want to go and check those videos out now, as of a month ago, you're not going to be able to find them because I took them down. They kept getting flagged or striked by YouTube, and I just kind of got annoyed and took them down. So, unfortunately, you can't see them, but I have included some clips in this video so you can kind of see what they were like. The first major change in my channel was in early 2015 when I stopped working in the lab and became a chem grad student. I wasn't able to film in the research labs, so I had to start doing everything from home. Working with chemicals at my house, though, was kind of weird at the beginning, and I honestly thought that it might have been the end of the channel. I figured I'd just try it out and see how it went, and I slowly started working on some projects. I managed to get a bench to work on in my garage, but it really wasn't anything fancy, and you could see all the shelving in the background. There was a sudden change, though, when I started filming from the other side of the table, and I set up a proper backdrop. For personal reasons, I ended up leaving my master's in mid-2015 because I just didn't really like the research I was doing, and I also didn't really see myself doing academic research as a career. After I left my program, I honestly had no idea what I was going to do. I knew that I loved teaching and making science videos, but it just wasn't financially viable. I spent the rest of 2015 just researching things that I might like to do, took a business course, and worked on several videos. To say the least, though, the business course didn't really turn out. When I sat down to actually study for the final, I figured I'd, look up what the actual exam date was, and it turns out that it was 3 days earlier. So I never finished that course. At the time, I had already kind of decided that I would dedicate another year to the channel and see what happens. So I thought this whole incident was kind of funny, but I mean, it's not great. I opened a Patreon in early 2016, and it was pretty amazing because it allowed me to not lose money with every video that I made. It also allowed me to really dedicate myself to making videos full time. Over the year, more people started noticing my videos, and I really felt like the channel was going somewhere. Around that time, I hit 40k subs, and I honestly thought it was going to be the most that I'd ever have. I figured there just couldn't be more than 40,000 people who would, want to sub to me. The first major milestone for the channel was at the end of 2016 when I hit 100k subscribers. I honestly can't really describe exactly how it felt, but it was one of the first things that I'd done in a long time that I was truly proud of. I did plan to make a proper thank you video at the time, but I just kept getting distracted by new projects and it was never made. In any case, it was at this point, so early 2017, that I was financially stable enough to continue making videos indefinitely. It also suddenly hit me that it had already been a year since I failed that business course, and that this was probably something that I was going to continue to do as a career. It was definitely a weird feeling when I realized this, and it still kind of feels weird when I think about it. With this realization, though, I doubled down and spent even more time and money on the channel. In hindsight, this was a pretty big turning point for the channel because I started to write proper intros, proper scripts, and I just put a lot more effort into just all the design and the editing that goes into the video making. I slowly bought more equipment and chemicals, and I even started selling merchandise. Everything expanded like crazy since then, and unfortunately, I eventually ran out of space. It started becoming a huge annoyance to film videos, and quite honestly a hazard. It was also impossible to properly store everything, and my workspace was constantly shrinking. At the beginning of this year, I made the big decision to rent out a space and to build a proper lab and studio. It was surprisingly hard to find a place that fit all my requirements, but I did eventually find one. It was originally 2 rooms, but with the help of my dad, we cut a hole in the wall and installed a doorway. The idea was to set up the lab in the room with the windows, and to keep the one with the green wall as a studio. With a proper lab, I wanted a fume hood, and I was really lucky to find one locally at a very good price. The fume hood guy also sold me an oven, a large centrifuge, and a chemical fridge for a total of $3,500. It really was an amazing deal. The next struggle, though, was getting the fume hood into the room. I had to dismantle the entire thing in the truck, and then carefully transfer it to a dolly. This whole time, though, I wasn't even sure if it would fit through the door of the room. I was really scared that we'd get it up there, and then just have to bring it all back down. We took the door off the hinges, and I held my breath as we pulled it through. It kind of got stuck, but with some more pulling, we did get it in. Getting it from the truck to the room took about 3.5 hours, and it was probably the single hardest part of this whole project. In my opinion, it was worth it though. But for the time being, I'm choosing not to think about the nightmare of having to move it out. I looked into buying proper lab cabinetry and stuff, but it turned out to be way too expensive. So I went the cheaper route and just built the entire thing from IKEA. I built the 3D version of it on their website and then submitted my order. The next major piece to get was the flooring. I spent a lot of time trying to figure out what I could do with the industrial carpeting that was already there. I had permission to tear it up, but if I did, I'd have to re-carpet it when I leave. So I figured it would be better to just leave it and to cover it with something. The solution I found were these big vinyl rolls that are normally used for garage flooring. On top of all this, I had to pick up a bunch of tools, tables, chairs, chemical storage cabinets, building supplies, and whatever else goes into making a studio and a lab. I also had to learn a whole bunch of stuff about construction and building things in general. I started this project on January 10th, and it took my dad and I 2 months to get everything built. So now that it's pretty much done, this is what it looks like. I mean, it's still a pretty big mess. The office wasn't exactly my biggest priority, so I set the lab up first and have kind of been doing little bits of work here and there. I was able to set up this table and, a little area to do research for videos and to also do some editing. I have my fridge, little microwave, and some food, but it really hasn't been a priority to set this side up. On the other side of this door though is the lab, which is more or less done. I decided to go with this sliding door because it was on sale at Home Depot, but also because I did want something to cover it, but I didn't want to have to set up a full proper swinging door, and this is going to stay open most of the time, so I didn't really see a sense in going through all that hassle. But anyway, on the other side is the lab. So this is basically it. Here I have my bases. Separated them all. I have bases and then formaldehyde and some other, large storage flammable solvents. Here's the main storage of the dry chemicals. So I have a bunch of elements. These stuff to be sorted properly because they technically shouldn't be, all together. But anyway, so here are my organics. Then I have my inorganics and drying agents and other, miscellaneous things. This little bucket back here is all my poisons, so things like cyanide, mercury compounds, lead compounds, etc. In this fridge here, my explosion-proof fridge that I got, is basically all my solvents in the smaller bottles. I also have my peroxide back there and other various, liquid chemicals, just to keep them, it's better, in my opinion, it's better than keeping it just, open in a storage cabinet. In this one, I have my acids. So I have my muriatic, my glacial acetic acid, some vinegar here, nitric separated from everything else, and you know, the sulfuric completely separated. I did the very safe thing of scratching out the water label, but making sure to label it properly with sulfuric acid. That's proper safety. So up top here, I'm still figuring out how to organize all this stuff. These are all my dyes and other indicators and stuff. And here are my products that I have from videos that I'm currently working on. I have this too. So there's, yeah, things that I need to test and, you know, do follow-ups after I've made the actual compound. These are just things that I have not sorted yet, and, you know, things I'm running low on, so I don't really want to put them into storage. Over here is my sink, which was a whole ordeal to set up because I don't have running water in here. And I could have paid, I think it was a few $1,000s to have running water, but I didn't really see the need because I don't really use running water very much except for when I wash. And I'm just going to be doing that in a basin like this. I'm going to obviously switch this out for clean water when I actually clean the glassware, but I figured it would be just good to save water in general. So this is kind of reserved for safety or emergency hand washing. And the way that it works is back here, I have a pump. Here is clean distilled water, and here is where the drain leads into. So normally, if you turn on the tap, nothing happens. But I set up this little button here, and if you click it, you'll hear something maybe. And that's the pump turning on. So now when I turn on the tap, water comes out. I mean, it's not exactly the most beautiful stream, but it works. And if I pull this and then turn it on, I get my eye wash. So emergency eye wash, emergency hand wash. Other than that, I just use the distilled water in this bottle, which I refill from up here. And in the drawers are just, you know, various random things. This is like bags and cotton balls. Yeah, and this one's empty. Didn't think there's anything in there. Above is just cleaning supplies. Here's the oven that I got, which I use to dry my glassware and forever, any experiment that needs, you know, an oven basically. Gloves are stored back here, along with torches and flammable things. I even have I do have a rotovap, but I haven't set it up yet because it needs to have its own vacuum pump. Don't have that, can't afford it right now. So it's kind of just sitting here. There's also this full-size centrifuge that fits full flasks, but it used to be in this little gap right here. But I took it down to film part of this video, and I didn't have the strength to lift it back up. I have no idea how much it weighs, but it's probably like 200 pounds or something crazy. But it can fit entire flasks, meaning for large-scale preparations, I can do, you know, I can put my entire reaction flask in there and spin it down. In every drawer, I've filled it with something. So in here, grad cylinders, round bottoms. Here I have bigger round bottoms. Here I have my filtration flasks. Here's other miscellaneous stuff like heating mantles, a Dremel, Bunsen burner, whatever. And at the bottom, I have all my separatory funnels and addition funnels. So basically, every single drawer is, you know, packed with something. Except this cupboard, which is just for some power. And the reason for this is that if you look here, I have these lights set up, and the power leads into here, and I have it set up wirelessly. So I have this little remote that when I click the button, I can turn these lights on and off. It seems kind of fancy, but it actually was a lot easier than having to wire everything up and to, you know, put a proper switch in the wall. These all have my tools. I had to buy all this stuff to put the lab together. This is just random stuff. I think this has my my desiccator. Then I have, you know, distillation stuff, distillation adapters, all my beakers and everything, filtering stuff. You know, so basically every drawer is packed with something. When I first got this place, I thought it was going to be a total waste that I got, you know, so many drawers. But turns out that I actually am using them, you know, every single one for something. Which, it honestly surprised me how much stuff I had. Here I have my 2 cameras, which I now use to film. I used to only use one, but in November I got this new GH5. So I can now film 2 experiments at once, and my productivity is going to go up quite a bit. Underneath the table here, I have to set this all up properly. I have my water recirculator for my condensers and stuff, and then I have my water recirculator vacuum pump, which I take out when I need, but I want to get them both on a trolley so I can push it around to, you know, the different workbenches, and it doesn't have to just sit on the floor here. And this thing, which was probably the hardest thing to set up out of everything. You know, I had to, as I said before, bring it up to this place, which was a huge pain. Had to get it onto this bench top, repainted the whole thing, and then I had to just, you know, figure out how I'm even going to ventilate it to the outside. So, turn on the light here. If you look up here, there's, you know, a little fan. Researched one that was compatible with chemicals, that's not going to, you know, it's sparkless, so it's not going to ignite any solvent vapor. And when I turn on the fan now, I can control the speed here. It blows all the air to the outside. And unfortunately, it just gets blown, I don't know if I can show you here. It just gets blown directly out the window. So this does severely limit the experiments that I can do, because there's no way I can pump anything really corrosive or anything dangerous, because it's just going to be going to the outside of the building. I can't risk anyone breathing it in. So it does limit in the sense I can't do any chlorine pumping, can't produce crazy amounts of nitrogen dioxide, and I can't do, you know, generally very dangerous things. But I didn't plan to do it here anyway, because I didn't feel safe doing that. So this fume hood's mostly for solvents. So I can pretty much do almost anything I want. I am limited by a couple things, and I will have to go back home to my house and do it in the backyard or outside if I want to do those things. But that's not the end of the world. Some of you might be wondering the final cost of all this, and well, it wasn't cheap. I tallied it all up, and assuming I'm not missing anything, the price so far has been about 18,000 Canadian. I saved as much money as I could, but in the end, building and furnishing 2 entire rooms is pretty expensive. There's still a whole bunch of work to do though, especially on the studio side, but I'm gonna space it out over the next few months. Even though I've had this place for a while now, I still can't really believe that it's reality. The idea that I could afford to do this by making YouTube videos is kind of crazy. So because of this, I have to give a massive thanks to all my viewers and to everyone who has supported me. Especially to my dad, who spent countless hours helping me put it all together. Also, a very special thanks goes to everyone on Patreon who have directly donated to me. There would have been close to a 0% chance of affording this without their help. Anyway, I think that's about it. Let me know what you guys think so far, and feel free to share any suggestions that you might have.